My friends, I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. And it is a beautiful, beautiful Thursday. We got to make sure the tubes are working before we start rambling off at the mouth. And it looks like they are alive and well, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Govea. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today we are talking about corruption, and we have a lot of it to attend to. We're going to start off the day by talking about what's going on with the FBI. Yesterday, we left off understanding that James Comer was going to be having a phone call with FBI Director Christopher Wray. They had that phone call, and it is not going to be fruitful. So it turns out that we're going to continue forward with the contempt proceedings. And we actually got our hands on the letter that was sent over by the FBI back to James Comer before the phone call. So we're going to see what the FBI's posture is and why they are refusing to give this document over. And it's actually pretty interesting. I mean, they're apparently offering James Comer the opportunity to come down to the FBI's office and see the document, but not actually see it because it would be covered in redactions. So they are just layering this thing on, and it's just a total joke. We have a senator who says he believes in this investigation, says he recognizes corruption at the highest levels within the FBI. We've got the FBI and former director James Comey, who is commenting on the Durham report, saying, yeah, you know, the FBI, we make little problems here and there, but it's not that big of a deal, really. It's just minor stuff, and they've already fixed most of the problems. We're going to hear from Chuck Grassley. He was on Fox explaining what his whistleblowers say and what his conversations with the FBI has been. And then we've got a clip from Byron Donalds also commenting on the FBI. Now, what's interesting about the FBI issue is that a lot of the voters, I think, are a lot more aware of this season. I mean, remember, the Crossfire Hurricane stuff and all of the 2016 shenanigans were important, but I don't think they were at the forefront of people's minds in 2020. And that might be changing in 2024 now that a lot of this has been exposed, which is very good news. In fact, Trump was in Iowa, and he got a question about this from a voter in Iowa, and he talked about this. They asked him specifically, what is your plan to reform the FBI? And we'll listen to his answers. So after all of this news, after the FBI stiffed Congress, formally rejecting their subpoena, apparently Christopher Wray got on the FBI's Gulfstream 550, baby, zipping through the air. Man, it's good to be an FBI director, isn't it? You get to fly around on private jets, and he took one over to Las Vegas last night. Because why not? So we'll talk about all of that in the first segment. What is going on with the FBI and the contempt proceedings, which appear to be moving forward full steam ahead. We've also got some other updates that we need to attend to because apparently more leaks are coming out. Story from special counsel Jack Smith is that Donald Trump has his voice on an audio recording that apparently implicates him as holding in his hand illegal classified documents. And we got a lot of questions about this. Who's recording these things? Why are there leaks that are still coming out of the special counsel's office? Who is generating these things? And a lot more to unpack about, is it even illegal what they're implying? So we'll go through that. There is evidence, or apparently, that it is an Iran document. It involves Mark Milley, the general. And then we've got rumors and reaction from Trump and his team in an article over from Politico. And Jack Smith is not limiting what appears his investigation to just January 6th and to just the classified documents problems. Remember, there were those two big buckets that they were supposed to focus on, but evidently he also got a subpoena and went after this guy, which was Christopher Krebs. Christopher Krebs, formerly from CISA, the same agency that came out and said absolutely nothing is problematic with our elections at all. And this is begging the question, is the special counsel's investigation expanding beyond those two issues and going back into 2020? So we'll see. Rumors that there is some internal distrust in Trump's legal team. We talked about this earlier this week. There was a departure of Trump's team. And so we have some updates on what's going on in there. And that's the update from special counsel. Then we're going to turn our attention over to what's happening in New York, because if you recall, we spent some time on this channel talking about Donald Trump's removal. He's being prosecuted out of Manhattan, the district attorney's office there in New York. But the problem is those claims, those criminal charges are kind of implicating federal issues. I mean, they talk about a federal presidential election, and the criminal charges for the falsification of business records are the records that pertain to a federal election, which is how they bootstrap this whole thing past the statute of limitations. So the question is, can Trump remove this out of this local court? And remember, Trump just got scolded by this court. He had to sit down there, and he got to get lectured by the judge. You obey my orders. You understand me? And he, yes, Your Honor, okay. And so they all go through that. But if Trump removes this up into federal court, maybe the dynamic changes a bit, and maybe the whole thing gets stopped because Trump is right in the middle of a federal election. We've talked a lot about this, the federal supremacy clause, and how that might interplay with the integrity of national elections versus the state's rights and the criminal process issues. We've got these two buckets, these two policy issues that are competing with one another, and we'll talk about those briefly. We also have the memo in support of the remand. So we'll read through this. This is from Alvin Bragg's office. He's explaining to the court why this case should not go to federal court, but should actually be back down in his district. And we'll fly through that here in a bit. Then in our last segment of the day, we are going to turn our attention over to what's happening with the Kari Lake case, because Lake is now officially appealing the trial that we spent 3 days covering here at length. She made the announcement very recently saying that she's got new evidence and that she has full faith in the appeal. We will take a look at the appeal as it was submitted. Actually, this is the notice of an appeal. It's not the actual appeal. Two different processes. One is you just tell the court, hey, we're going to be appealing this, but we got to get transcripts. We got to go through them. I mean, a trial's 3 days. You got to listen to it all again, type out your arguments. I mean, it's a big process. So they give you a long time to file your appeals. They will assemble the appeal and do a much more cohesive memo, appellate memorandum, and then that will be filed later. But this is still not an insignificant document. There's actually, I think it's 3 pages, and normally these things are like, a paragraph. So it is interesting. We'll look at that. And then there was another ruling from the court. Kari Lake is not going to be getting sanctioned. And that came out recently as well. So we'll see what the judge said about it. In other words, implying that her claims had legitimacy to them. They weren't acting recklessly, even though the media and a lot of people on Twitter will tell you otherwise, like Stephen Richer and onesie twosie PTSD Bill Gates. So, as you can see, my friends, we have a lot to get to today. And if you want to be a part of the show, the best way you can do that is by joining our community as a member at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do member-only morning streams like we did today. A little smaller group, a little more intimate, a lot of fun. And so come check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We also do Saturday shows where we catch up on the weekend headlines, and it's a lot of fun. Great people over there. Come check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, you can join on YouTube. You get all the same stuff except the after party. For that, you got to join us on Telegram, because sometimes those conversations are not exactly YouTube appropriate. And so come on over to Telegram. If you're a YouTube member, get the Telegram link in the community section on YouTube. Also, we have to be properly fortified. We've got some serious business to attend to. And, every time we talk about the FBI, our immune systems get deteriorated because it's so disgusting. Instead of letting that happen, let's get fortified, baby. Sure, my friends, we'd all like to lose those leftover pandemic pounds, right? But how sick are you of all the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets? We've all been there. We've all done it. We've all tried it. They just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, fruit and vegetables, not a fan. I mean, who's got time to prepare that every day? I don't. But I don't have to, because I've got Field of Greens, my friends. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you won't find in any other product, because proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. yes, you're going to look healthier and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor looks at you and says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. So let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert when you check out so you can save 15% or more, 15% at checkout, and you can be like the Incredible Hulk with your Field of Greens. This came courtesy of our friend Nathan N810. Save 15% at checkout when you use code Robert from your Field of Greens, and you can be like Popeye too. And so thank you to our friend Nathan for supporting our work here and our amazing sponsors. Be like Popeye. He loves spinach. He ate his greens, man. And he's a famous cartoon character because of it. You can be too. Eat your Field of Greens, fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% with code Robert. All right. And so now let's get into the meat and potatoes on the day, my friends. As more FBI corruption becomes exposed, the congressional contempt proceedings continue on. The FBI made some slight concessions when the FBI refused to give over the FD 1023 form, the form that implicates the Biden crime family. They said, we'll give you some of the information. We'll put some redactions on it. You can come to our offices and see. This is despite the fact that Congress sent a very valid congressional subpoena over to them and said, give us the document. Put it in an envelope, send it over to our congressional committee, and we want to look at it. Well, we learned the FBI said, we're just not going to do that. There was a phone call between James Comey and the FBI director, and here is what the follow-up was, because they said, we'll make some accommodations, but not actually give you the document.
This is 1/3, the Senate cut spending too much. There are some Republicans mad because we didn't cut spending enough. That's called governing. I don't like it. But when we're 1/3 of the equation, the House is 1/3, the Senate's a third, and the White House is a third. I think it's about as good a deal as we could have gotten. So I'm glad that we've moved past this, and now we can focus on trying to get spending under control again.
All right, next question.
In October when the full year budget appropriation comes due again.
All right, let's talk about your call earlier today with the FBI Director Christopher Wray, along with Senator Chuck Grassley. And you have been asking and demanding that they turn over this 1023 form. Director Wray acknowledged that they have it. He would produce it for you in private. Let me ask you about this, because my understanding of a 1023 is pretty simple, is that it is an allegation. You and Senator Grassley believe it's a credible allegation based on the individual whistleblower that brought it to your attention. Okay, I tend to trust you too. However, the question I have is, are we going to start releasing all 1023s publicly? Would that result in an invasion of privacy or the potential of making accusations against people that they have not fully corroborated? And why not take advantage of the FBI director's offer to see it in like a private skiff or whatever, whatever area he deems secure?
That was kind of an interesting question from Sean. Well, isn't this kind of a little bit inappropriate? All these FD 1023s, are you guys kind of like rummaging around in places you shouldn't be?
Well, to answer that question, Sean, he offered us the opportunity to come look at it in a private ship, but he was going to redact it. My experience with getting documents from the FBI when they're redacted, it's all black lines. They don't show anything.
No, they don't.
But I'm going to say on this show what we told Director Wray, what Senator Grassley told Director Wray. He and I have already seen the 1023 form. Okay. We knew what was in the 1023 form. Until we told Director Wray that, he never even admitted that the form existed. So the level of confidence that...
What a piece of something, So I have no idea what you're talking about. No, the 1023 form, the one with Joe Biden's name on it, the one that has the date and implicates him with a $5 million deal. You know the one I'm talking about. I have no idea. The FBI cannot confirm or deny it. He's like, Chris, buddy, we have a copy of it. We just got to make sure that you've got a copy of it. What I'm guessing is the whistleblower who actually turned it in probably has a copy of it. What's in the document is certainly troubling. What's more troubling is the fact that the FBI might have had the document brought to them by a credible whistleblower, and the FBI sat on it, which is the cover-up for Joe Biden. So we need to get it through the appropriate chain of custody. That's what this is all about. They know what's in the document. They know exactly what's in there, I would guess. I imagine the whistleblower has a copy of it or has details or spoke to them about what I put in there. And so they just need to make sure that it's the same document that the FBI has and then ask all the questions. What were you doing with this thing at the bottom of a drawer for so long? It says here that Joe Biden got $5 million in a policy quid pro quo with some foreign international person who wants policy changes for their country, presumably, or their company. Why did you guys not do anything with it? So they've got to get it from the FBI to show that they didn't do anything with it.
We have with Director Wray only went down. It only declined throughout the conversation. So we will go there and...
So as soon as they let the cat out of the bag, hey, we know what's in there, dumb Chris. It went south from there. He's like, crap.
Look at the redacted document, but we know what's in the document. And the reason we find this allegation credible, not only because of the credibility of the whistleblower, but because we've seen a pattern of Joe Biden, when he was vice president, leaving a country after he talks about foreign aid and foreign policy, and his family members start receiving payments from that company through shell companies that are then laundered down to Biden family members. So there is a pattern of behavior. And we saw that in Romania, we've seen that in China, we've seen that in other countries, that would suggest that this allegation has merit.
Well, by the way, with all the press reports I've been reading today about your phone call, not one of them actually mentioned that minor little detail that it would be redacted.
Yeah, he left that part out, which is a big deal.
That's a huge deal. Yeah. That's not transparency. Yeah. All right, so that means now that you will move forward with contempt charges.
So Sean bought the headlines that came out of the New York Times
against the FBI director. Tell us what that will look like, because, you know, let's say he comes in. I would doubt that he may just not show up, or if he just would the FBI director plead the fifth on an issue, and doesn't Congress, especially your committee above all others, have oversight? That is your job to have oversight.
That's our job. That's what this committee does. That's what this committee was created to do. We have oversight over the federal government. But for some reason, the FBI thinks they're immune to oversight. Look, the Durham report proves that the FBI has lots of issues. We brought that up. Senator Grassley and I reminded Director Wray that the Durham report was devastating to the credibility of the FBI, and his response was that all happened before he became FBI director. So, look, all we want is this form, and it's not classified. They can redact the name of the informant. I'm fine with that. I would have redacted it if I had the document, without that redaction. Let's protect the human informant. I agree with that. We should always protect the human informant.
I want to be very clear. You believe in the credibility of this whistleblower. You believe that the allegation that Joe Biden, as vice president, received money for his family or family enterprise in exchange for specific acts that he took as the vice president of our country. You believe that that is a credible charge, an allegation made by a credible witness blower?
It's so hard to believe, Sean. I wouldn't have believed it had I not seen the bank records. Have I not seen the shell companies that the Biden family created to launder money that was being received from foreign nationals after Joe Biden left the country with foreign aid checks? So there's a pattern here that would suggest this is a credible allegation. Now, I went through this at Treasury just a few months ago. They said, oh, you don't need access to these suspicious activity reports, these bank violations that the Biden have. You're never going to find anything there. That's what Janet Yellen kept saying. We finally got in there, and guess what we found, Sean? We found that Joe Biden lied when he said his family never took money from China. We found that Joe Biden actually did, and his family did receive payments while he was vice president. And we found five new Biden family members that were in on the influence peddling scheme. So that was a very productive trip to the Treasury Cabinet, even though they said we wouldn't find anything. I think we'll find the same sort of evidence with the FBI documents.
And Director Wray, to be clear, will now face contempt of Congress.
Unless he produces this document like we asked, this unclassified document by Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever we have the markup.
All right, James Comer, Congressman, thank you.
All right, so contempt moving forward. They offered to give him some of the document, highly redacted, and we've seen all of the documents here. We go through it's a whole paragraphs. B6 redaction, B7 redaction, personal information, sources and methods. And so the FBI obviously doesn't want any of this to go out. And again, it's not so much about the information. Okay, we all know that there's enough emails, enough smoke there that Joe Biden, I think even huge portions of America now think that the Biden family is pretty largely corrupt. And what they have done is knowledgeable. It's out there in the political sphere. But what is not as well known is how corrupt the FBI is in covering the whole thing up and preventing actual whistleblowers from moving the ball forward on open political corruption at the highest levels of America. This is Senator Roger Marshall, hailing from Kansas, who says that the FBI is not immune. At the upper echelon, the highest levels within the Bureau, corruption prevails.
They gave us a Democrat-controlled Senate. They control the agenda. They control the oversight. So I have to trust in Jamie Comer, a good friend, a smart person that's working, really drilling down on this. But at the end of the day, Americans know there is corruption at the highest levels of government, in the FBI, the DOJ, collaborating with the White House, with Joe Biden and Barack Obama. And Americans need to hold them accountable at the election booth. That's where this needs to change. America has an opportunity to change all this. I do think that Congressman Comer, Chairman Comer, can hold Wray in contempt of Congress. I know that the DOJ won't do a thing with that, so they'll have to go to the next step and have a vote on the House floor and hold him in contempt.
This is just extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, and it is something that I think is going to continue forward. I can't imagine the FBI is now going to give in and send the document over. I think that this is probably going to go to litigation. But let's take a look at some of the FBI justifications. Here is what they sent over to James Comer right before the phone call. So the phone call where they said, we'll give you some redactions and you can come over and look at it. This is their foundation supporting their position. This was sent over to James Comer May 30th, to the Honorable James Comer on the Oversight Committee. And you can see not a long document signed here by Christopher Dunham, Acting Assistant Director to Christopher Wray, copied to Jamie Raskin over in the House. Says, from the FBI, Dear Chairman Comer, this provides a response to your letter dated May 24th to the FBI investigation about the FD 1023. FBI says, James, as we stated in our May 10th correspondence, the FBI is committed to working to provide the committee information necessary for your legitimate oversight interests. So your illegitimate interests we'll just ignore, while also protecting executive branch confidentiality and law enforcement responsibilities like my sources and methods. In the same letter, we explain the significant limits on whether, when, and how CHS confidential human source information can be provided outside of the FBI. We've got rules we've got to follow, you know? We follow the law at the FBI. And how those limits are critical to the physical safety of our sources. All right. Well, as Comer has already said, they're okay redacting the physical safety of the source name and others identified in the source reporting, as well as the integrity of the program and long-standing DOJ confidentiality interests, which is really, I think, where they're hanging their hat on this. It's, we are at the executive branch, confidentiality. We don't want anybody to see this ultimately. We appreciated the opportunity to meet with your staff in May, a first step to learning about your specific needs. No, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. Yeah, let's have multiple conversations about it so we never have to give it to you. So we just want, this is just a preliminary meeting is what they said. Just, we want to learn about your specific informational needs. The FBI is so brain dead that they have to have a full meeting about it. All they needed to know is that it's an FD 1023 form from a particular date involving the Biden family. That's it. You can do that in an email. You don't need multiple steps as a first step to learn more about the interests. Well, here's the interest. They think that you're a bunch of corrupt partisan hacks who are not prosecuting whistleblower reports to you about corruption within your agency and within the executive branch. That's the problem. They need the form. They've got congressional oversight power to do it. Give them the form. What else do you need to talk about? To help satisfy those informational needs and to better inform the committee about our security concerns related to law enforcement sensitivities, the FBI provided a comprehensive briefing related to our program on CHSs, which I just can't even imagine what this was. It was probably a bunch of FBI interns, probably just laughing themselves to death for a bunch of congressional aides, or even Comer, I don't know if he was there, sitting around just PowerPoint clicking through the slides. He's like, how long is this going to go on? She's like, no, I'm on slide 67. Are you kidding me? We're just getting started. I'm not even 10% done. All right. Just sit there. I've got a lot more to educate you about our program. All right. And only after we get through these 5,000 slides are you going to maybe get a second meeting with us. So they played their game. Subsequently, they had another meeting. A deputy assistant director of the FBI's Directorate of Intelligence. Love these names. Deputy assistant director, FBI's Directorate of Intelligence. Wow. Wow. It's like a mouthful. Can that even fit on a business card? Deputy assistant director of the FBI's Directorate of Intelligence. All right. Says provided, I hope this person feels great about themselves. Provided that the briefing to the committee staff, they went over there and they gave the briefing. And they said, Congress said, this is totally useless. And they said, do you know who I am? And they said, no, who are you? He said, I'm the Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Directorate of Intelligence. And they said, okay, well, that sounds pretty official. I guess we'll sit back down and finish the slides. The briefing included a detailed discussion of the Attorney General's guidelines, that's Mayor Garland, regarding the use of FBI confidential human sources and the policy which strictly limits when and how CHS information can be provided outside the FBI, as well as the reasons behind the policy. The Deputy Assistant Director of the Directorate, who directs directors, expressed the FBI's concern over the chilling effect that could flow from the wide dissemination of investigative files to include reduced willingness of CHSs to provide the reporting. In other words, if we give you the document, other CHSs are not going to give us the documents because you're going to come and get the documents. As you know, CHSs are critical to the FBI's ability to build cases, including those against violent gangs, drug cartels, and terrorists. Okay, nobody's talking about violent gangs or drug cartels. We are talking about a drug addict, former maybe current, I don't know, called Hunter Biden. That is one thing. But this is not about CHSs related to standard operating procedures that the FBI does in legitimate domestic law enforcement activities. This is about the FBI having a massive conflict of interest because they are sitting on a whistleblower report that implicates the president, the chief executive of the country, the commander-in-chief, the head of the executive branch. We're asking about one specific case. The FBI feels like it has conflicted itself into a corner. It can't investigate itself. That's why this is appropriate to review. Congress isn't asking about violent gangs or drug cartels or terrorists. They're asking about the president. The briefing from the FBI to Congress emphasized the importance of the FBI protecting not only the identity of a specific source, okay, again, moot point. They agree to protect that person's identity, but also protecting information that would have a tendency to even identify the source, like the contextual material found in the form. So that means they have to redact more in the document. Comer said, yeah, just redact the name. And they said, well, but if you redact just the name, there might be other material in the document that provides context that might allow you to identify the person anyways. The briefing explained the importance of closely protecting the source information to preserve sources and methods. There it is. You can't get an FBI document without that. Sources and methods, sources and methods. To maintain investigative integrity, to prevent the chilling of the FBI's recruitment of sources and their candor in reporting, and also to protect sources and individuals associated with them from being physically harmed or killed. If they give this form over to Congress, people are going to drop dead in the streets. I don't know why. These aren't Clinton documents. The briefing highlighted that the FBI's obligation to protect the CHS information extends at least for the life of the source. So they want to keep this buried until this dude drops dead so that he can't testify. Perfect. To address the committee's question, your committee, James, about how information in the 1023s may be handled, the Deputy Assistant Director of the Directorate, who directs directors at the FBI coloring book team, presented an overview of the various levels of approval that go into reviewing the forms, as well as policies about how they're routed internally. So gave him a big company manual. Here's what we do with these, okay? We don't care what you do with them. We want to see the form. The Directorate Director outlined how the FBI analyzes the veracity of source reporting, the mechanisms designed to weigh this, and cautioned that raw, unverified source reporting may lack important context. So Congress is too stupid, which, you know, is a fair criticism, to know what to do with this document. And if we just give it to them, this information is so powerful, they're so irresponsible and so moronic that we, as the stewards of democracy in America, we can only allow certain people access to certain information. In this case, this is too dangerous for us. And so Congress might turn legitimate raw material into disinformation and use it to wreck the country. Throughout the briefing, the Directorate endeavored to respond to questions from both majority and minority staff. FBI says, we appreciated the opportunity to provide additional information regarding the critical importance of protecting CHSs, as well as emphasizing the extreme sensitivities with your request. As we've long said previously, writes the FBI, information provided by CHSs also implicates confidentiality interests. Our intelligence authorities enable us to collect a lot of data, but we've got strict rules to follow. And 1023 forms include leads and suspicions, not the conclusions of the case. We've explained previously, James, that FD 1023 form documents information as told to a line FBI agent. It's raw. Recording the information doesn't validate it, okay. Establish its credibility, okay. Or weigh it against any other information known or developed by the FBI. All right, so the FBI is going to say they've already investigated this. This was a raw report, and other information smashes the credibility of it, and we can't just give you the raw document because we have other documents that will add context to this. It's like giving you just one chapter or like the first chapter of a book. But we know what the other chapters say, and we know how the ending is. And so you just want the initial first chapter, but we can't give it to you because we can't give you all of the other chapters. Further, the public's perception of the impartiality of the law enforcement process could be damaged if we give this to you, because it's not part of an investigative process. It's part of a different investigative process into investigating why you, the FBI, are sitting on shocking information about presidential criminality. Law enforcement sensitive information, they say, created for investigative purposes must be protected from the appearance, this is hysterical, the FBI must be protected from the appearance of the FBI engaging in political, publicity, or other considerations. Yeah, the FBI is totally nonpartisan. They're totally apolitical. And they want to forego the appearance of any impropriety, which is hysterical because it's one of the most political organizations in this country, the DOJ. This approach of protecting from disclosure highly sensitive and confidential information has been complied with across administrations. And so throughout our engagement with the committee, the FBI expressed our ongoing commitment to continue working with your staff to identify additional accommodations that could be made. Following engagement with the staff, the FBI was made aware of your request for a call. As you know, that's scheduled for tomorrow. Recognizing your latest request and my response, we can now confirm that we have additional information that we're prepared to offer to you as an extraordinary accommodation. Meaning, don't ask for this again. The director looks forward to talking to you tomorrow to plan to how we can help. We are committed to providing you access to information in a format that maintains our sensitivities and our interests. Director Wray looks forward to speaking with you tomorrow to discuss the path forward. So, as we know, the phone call happened. The phone call was Christopher Wray saying you can come down to a secure facility in our location and I'll show you this document. You can't take it. You can't really do much with it. And you can't see all of it because we're going to redact everything that they've already articulated that might have contextual information that could be exploited for whatever reason or undermine what they claim to be their sources and methods and their sensitivities. So the call happened, and we know the FBI is not cooperating and that Congress is not happy about that. And so as Comer explained to us, the contempt proceedings will be moving forward. We've got more reaction from Grassley, Byron Donalds, and Trump gets asked about what he intends to do when he wins the presidency. But first, here's another former director of the FBI. You remember him as Comey. James Comey showed up on MSNBC, gets asked questions about the Durham report and about some of this FBI corruption that a lot of other Americans are now talking about. Now that the Durham report has implicated multiple levels of nefariousness with the FBI, what does Comey say about it?
People in law enforcement, which matters.
So as for the Durham report, 300 pages, 4 years investigating the investigators. One of the things that did come out of it was that procedures, regular FBI procedures, were ignored, that steps were missed along the way in this investigation. In fact, Director Wray said when the report came out, yeah, we acknowledged that a couple of years ago, and we've changed all that. Those changes are already in place. Do you acknowledge perhaps that some mistakes were made along the way?
Oh, definitely. And they were found 4 years ago by the Inspector General. So there's nothing new in this new document.
What were some of those mistakes from your point of view?
Oh, that the FBI didn't communicate clearly the status of certain sources. They didn't double check certain information before putting it in a court application for a foreign intelligence wiretap, and a bunch of others.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
so do you believe now, as some of these politicians call for defunding of the FBI, that has been corrected and that now the procedures are in place to avoid those kind of mistakes in the future?
I think so. But in complex investigations, there's always going to be mistakes. It doesn't mean the FBI is incompetent, honest, and independent.
So, Director, with some distance,
I think it kind of does.
Now from your time there with that investigation and everything that came into that 2016 election, are there things that you wish you had done differently?
Oh, plenty. I mean, plenty of small things. In the main, I think the FBI did it in the right way during a very difficult time in 2016.
So the attacks have obviously been unrelenting from former President Trump, who is very much back on the political.
So they're even talking about this on MSNBC, asking Comey about this. Hey, are you really as big of a corrupt hack as everybody says you are? Well, a couple things went wrong, a lot of other things, but, all these investigations have problems, and he wants to move on and talk about his book. But others are staying on the case. We've got a clip here from Chuck Grassley, who is a senator, that is going to be explaining the FBI problems, provided this video loads. What I meant to say is we have a clip from Byron Donalds, and Byron Donalds is talking about the FBI and what a corrupt bunch of jerks they are.
We know that the FBI interfered in not one but two presidential elections in 2016 and in 2020. So I think there's definite issues at the FBI that we got to fix. Appropriations is the way of my view. Now to Director Wray, this document that Congress first requested and now has subpoenaed, and he's still saying no, I find to be completely outrageous. We don't report to the executive branch and to the federal agencies. Congress has powers of the purse. We do have duties to actually have oversight of the federal agencies. And what's happening in the Biden administration, and it's not just FBI, by the way, it's happening all over this administration, where they are withholding information. They do not respond to congressional inquiries. This is a real violation of separation of powers, and it is a constitutional crisis.
Yeah.
I don't use those words lightly. If there's a document that Congress is requesting, the agencies have a responsibility to deliver it.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to hold Chris Wray in contempt, I fully support that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, right.
We know that.
So he is fired up, says they're in the middle of a constitutional crisis, and I think he's right about that. I think there's going to be a lot more of these, because you have these major conflicts of interest where you're asking the agencies, you're asking the executive branch to investigate itself, essentially. Why are you prosecuting Trump and trying to imprison your political enemies while providing force fields and shields for your political allies? Doesn't feel appropriate at all. But the only real remedy is to have the executive. This is happening at the highest levels, right? In my opinion, every single person is compromised in this cover-up scheme, from the FBI to the Attorney General to the President. The entire chain is compromised. And this is all by design. So what do? Congress can pound its feet over this. But the FBI, if they have this unified front and the DOJ doesn't take any action on it, is going to continue doing whatever they want. And we know Special Counsel Jack Smith is on the verge of indicting Donald Trump. When all of this happens, we are going to be in an even deeper constitutional crisis than we're already in. This is the clip from Chuck Grassley. He was on with Fox explaining his side of this conversation with Wray.
This guy, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. Welcome, sir, for your time today, and a good morning to you. You don't love it. Will you vote for it?
Yes, I'm going to vote for it. I had meetings last week during our Senate recess in Iowa in 13 different counties. And in those 13 counties, Iowans are fed up with the partisanship in Washington. They're fed up with talk about possible default of debt, because we've never done that, and they want the government to run in a business-like way, just like these small businesses and people that come to my town meetings have to run their families or their small business. So we can't shut down the government. There's a lot in this bill that's very good. There's some that's not so good, but it is a compromise, and when Republicans have just control of one out of three branches of the political branches of government, you got to expect some compromise, and nobody's going to be 100% satisfied with every compromise you get. And just think how bad it would have been if the Democrats controlled the House of Representatives. We'd be spending trillions more than what we're going to be spending over the next 2 years with this agreement.
May I ask you to assess the leadership skills of Kevin McCarthy? You've been on.
Let's fast forward. I want to talk about Christopher Wray. Here we go.
Is that the case, and is that good enough for you? Look at it. Is that the case, and is that good enough for you?
Well, it's not good enough for me. We asked for the document a month ago. It's been subpoenaed. He ought to respond to a subpoena. We're doing the constitutional job of oversight. I have read that document. If he would read it, and it's an unclassified document, he admits it exists, and we aren't interested in whether or not the accusations against Vice President Biden are accurate or not. We're responsible for making sure the FBI does its job, and that's what we want to know.
Okay, Senator, let me stop you there. You just said you read the document, is that right?
Yes.
Then what did it say?
Well, I'm not going to characterize it. We're going to make it public when they get it delivered to us. But if
so, I'm guessing again that there is a copy of this whistleblower's document that they're already in possession of, but they are trying to prove a much bigger point. It's about the FBI failing to prosecute. It's about the FBI not going through the proper whistleblower procedures when somebody comes up and says, hey, we have a conflict here. This is not an unusual thing, right? FBI is a giant, unfortunately, disgusting bureaucracy, and there's conflict of interest all the time. And so we have to make sure they're going through the appropriate steps, because that's what Congress does. It oversees the executive branches, is the natural order of checks and balances, and they pay the money, they get some oversight. And so when they want to investigate whether they're specifically digging into a conflicted case, Congress is now being stonewalled by the FBI.
He would read it, he would know that all the excuses that he's giving us, that he wants to protect sources, and that's important to protect sources, but that's not an issue with this document the way I read it, and he ought to come forth. They've got to produce this document. You know, they're up against what the Durham report has said about the shortcomings and the political bias of the FBI, and this is just one more example of them not being forthcoming to the public, because the public's business ought to be public, and there's no reason for an unclassified document to be held in secret.
Senator, how damning is this document to the sitting U.S. president?
Well, it's I don't know that, and that's what we need. But
you've read it.
I read it. Let's put it this way: there's accusations in it, but that's it's not for me to make a judgment about whether these accusations are accurate or not. It's up to my job to make sure the FBI is doing their job, and that's what this is all about, as far as I'm concerned. Public's business ought to be public.
James Comey, the former FBI director, did an interview yesterday. He really thinks that the Republicans, and I think he's including you in this, is out to get the FBI. Listen to him here.
It's really unfortunate. The notion that the FBI is some sort of leftist cabal out to get the Republicans is so crazy. It just shows you how crazy our times are.
Oh, yeah, it's real crazy, right? That's why they were setting up fake white supremacy organizations all around the country. That's why they were prosecuting the Whitmer plot hoaxers. All of that was a total scam. That's why this J6 stuff has been a giant scam from day one. We've covered many trials here. How many confidential human sources were in the Proud Boys case? The defense had 50 that they've identified. The government had 8 that they confirmed. There were 5 Proud Boy defendants. So it does feel like it is a little bit of a leftist cabal. We've got people like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and Andy McCabe saying we're going to stop Trump out there. And they were all under the purview, all under the umbrella of the FBI. Michael Sussman was meeting with Jim Baker. Jim Baker went and worked with Twitter. Twitter was being fed propaganda censorship from the FBI all throughout the election from Elvis Chan. Delete this, delete that. The list goes on and on. There is no shortage of stories to point to where the FBI has been creating policies to focus specifically on one class of people in this country, a disfavored political class, a disfavored defendant class. The laws don't necessarily apply equally to you. You get different due process provisions. You get different ability to talk about your case if you're being prosecuted out of DC. You get different release conditions. You get different sentences. You get 18 years. And the FBI wants people like Ray Epps. They put him on his most wanted list. And then suddenly he's gone with the wind, not even available for prosecution, even though everybody else has been. And many of them did less severe things than Ray Epps did. So it's not nutty at all. You and your FBI have wrecked your institution in catastrophic fashion, and people are just now starting to realize it.
FBI will be fine in the long run. This fever around Donald Trump in the MAGA world will eventually break, but it's become somehow a nutty article of faith that the FBI is out to get Republicans.
You guys say it in your own policy papers. You guys have named them, and you've created domestic violent extremists and homegrown violent extremists. And if you say stuff like 1776, you are a terrorist or something like that. You're a homegrown domestic violent extremist for saying that Americans should believe in liberty and freedom and small government. And if you question the integrity of elections, you are now on an FBI list. So it's not nutty at all. These people are trying to gaslight their viewers on MSNBC, and it's going to cause an increasing wreckage to them. The institution is losing its legitimacy by the day, and the longer they play this game and try to cover up for themselves, the more the facade is going to crumble and people will recognize the truth.
A reaction, sir?
We are not out to get the FBI. We're out to change the culture of the FBI at headquarters. The people that are at the grassroots in Iowa and throughout this country doing their job, investigating crime, we have no complaints with them. We have complaints with the fact that there was political bias with the emails of Hillary. We have political bias in the hurricane investigation that went on. We have political bias that's been proven by the Durham report. And the FBI has to straighten out their house, get it in order. And he's trying to tell us that he's made changes since he's been there. Maybe he's made some changes, but he hasn't made enough changes. And just a recent information I got from whistleblowers maybe 6 months ago with a guy by the name of Tebow using political bias in starting an investigation against Trump, stopping an investigation against Hunter. That guy's no longer with the FBI. I talked to Ray about it. So Ray is willing to take some action to make some changes when he took Tebow off of that investigation job that he had. And he needs to do more. And producing this unclassified document that he admits exists just turn it over to us and honor the subpoena, honor the constitutional responsibility of Congress. He's given information, either leaked or directly given, of classified documents, and maybe even exposing the name of a confidential source to the New York Times. Well, he's treating Congress like second-class citizens compared to the New York Times, and it's just not right. It's unconstitutional, his actions.
Yeah, he's embarrassing Congress. Most of the executive branch is. Everybody in the Biden administration seems to just be rolling over the Republicans. And we know that FBI Director Wray, he likes to hop on his airplane and fly all over the country, doesn't even give Congress the time of day. Now, the rest of the country is waking up to the FBI's disgustingness. And when Trump was in Iowa, they got a question lobbed his way about this specifically. Mr. President, when you take back the White House, what is your plan to stop and reform the FBI?
Now the Durham report has come out and shows all of the abuses that the FBI and the Justice Department had. When you become president on day one, what are you going to do to restore the respect for the FBI and our law enforcement back into this country that it once had?
It's so fair a question. And you know, the FBI has, and you have a lot of great people in the FBI, but the FBI has taken hits like in history like they haven't taken.
It's been bad.
And look, I'm a victim of it. They've come after me. They've come after me on many things, all debunked. The Mueller report, the fake dossier. How about the dossier, which was written up by the Democrats, all fake stuff, and a disgusting thing. And I had to go through a long time. And still we did more than just about any president in history with all of that stuff on my shoulders. They tell me, oh, I was a Russian agent. Okay, I was a Russian agent. I used to say, at first I thought they were kidding. When I heard that, I said, yeah, that's sort of funny. I didn't know what the hell I hadn't even spoken to anybody in Russia. You know, they went through 5 million phone calls, and I didn't make one call to Russia. That was a little bit bad, but they didn't denounce that. They didn't talk about that. No, we have a very, very corrupt system, and it's got to be, and we need from the top, we need great people. We need heads of the FBI. We need heads of the top people at the Department of Justice. This is.
So Trump is answering the question. He sounds good. He sounds like he's got some good energy there. Didn't hear much in terms of what he would do, but he recognizes it's a major problem and that he has been a victim of the FBI, as have many people in this country. And we'll see if we get more substance there. Is he wanting to defund them? Is he wanting to replace Christopher Wray? But the policy position will, I'm sure, evolve as more and more comes out. But what I thought was interesting about that clip is that it's being asked about. People are asking, you know, this FBI feels like it's a pretty corrupt thing that is wrecking justice, right? It's not just about the FBI prosecuting certain people. It's about the consequence of that for justice in America and how it is being weaponized to suppress political movements in this country. The voters are recognizing it, asking about it. Hey, the Durham report came out. You know, what does it say? And it's pretty neat to see that even in Iowa, well, especially in Iowa, it's a question right at the forefront of people's minds. Hey, let's talk about this. It warms my heart. So shout out to that guy for a great question. Now, while the FBI is in hot water, Christopher Wray, you know where he is? Vegas, man. He's in Vegas. I wonder what's going on there. Just hours after informing Congress that they're getting stiffed, you're not getting that document. FBI Director Christopher Wray hopped on the Bureau's Gulfstream jet and ferried off to more friendly confines of Vegas, baby. The flight manifest for the FBI official jet shows Wray left the Washington suburb of Manassas in Virginia, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, landed about 4 hours later in Nevada's most famous tourist city. Getting his Vegas on. Agency officials said the jaunt was for official business, and that Wray would be speaking to a conference of counterterrorism officials and meeting with the FBI Las Vegas field office and attending a law enforcement memorial ceremony. Yeah, he's speaking, talking about the importance of counterterrorism. He's also scheduled to meet there. Oh yeah, 9/11 line of duty, death service. The trip allows the FBI boss to escape an increasingly hostile Washington. And so, yeah, it's a nice plane. You know, it's a nice plane if you're going to be an FBI director. and you do the bidding of the globalists and your political party, they give you a jet. You can fly around to Vegas. So that's what's going on with the FBI. Congress staying on the case. Contempt proceedings look like they're moving forward. As soon as we get some legislation out, we'll be sure to dig into it. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing wherever it is you are watching it. And we'll look forward to continuing to cover this as we see you on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, big first segment there, but we've got more business to attend to. We are not done yet. The Trump prosecutions continue forward, and special counsel Jack Smith, seen here, is now hinting that he might have some audio recordings of Trump. Magical evidence just keeps popping up, and in this case, apparently implicates a classified document. Many different leaks coming out of this special counsel's office. They keep sending stuff to CNN, the New York Times, and others, but this story came out from CNN as an exclusive. They say, Trump captured on tape talking about classified documents that he kept. And remember, in any criminal case, where one of the main components of it is a person's mental state. It's called mens rea. Do they have a guilty mind? Did they take out to do the thing and think about it in a volitional thought process? They're looking for indicia that show that Trump intended to keep documents knowing that they were classified, knowing that he had an obligation to give them back, knowing that he didn't declassify them. So not only alleging that he broke the law, but also alleging that he didn't have any defenses to the breaking of the law. And this is indicators of that. Here's the story. Federal prosecutors, in a private investigation, have obtained an audio recording of a summer 2021 meeting in which former President Trump acknowledges he held on to a classified Pentagon document about a potential attack on Iran. Where did this come from? Multiple sources tell CNN. All right. Undercutting his argument that he declassified everything, right? So if Trump is sitting here, they're alleging, and he's holding this document, and he's like, well, this classified paper, and this classified paper, he's saying, is classified. Well, that means he didn't declassify it. That's indicia that Trump has a guilty mind to be in possession of a classified document. The recording indicates, allegedly on this audio file, that Trump understood he retained the classified material after leaving the White House. Now, again, if you're looking at a classified document and you're talking about a classified document, maybe it's just stamped classified on there, and you're just like, yeah, I mean, it's classified, or it was classified, or the classified document, but it doesn't mean that the actual status is classified. If he declassified it, you could say it's just being referenced by that symbol on the document. So there's many different ways that CNN could listen to something and reinterpret it. We don't know. Obviously, we haven't heard it. They say that Trump understood he retained classified material after leaving the White House, according to multiple sources. On the recording, Trump's comments suggest he would like to share the information, but he's aware of limitations on his ability post-presidency to declassify records. Okay, so that changes the story a little bit. He's saying this is currently classified, and since I'm not president anymore, I can't declassify it, so therefore I can't share it. So he knows he's in possession of classified documents. Now, CNN, of course, has not listened to the recording, but multiple sources described it. Okay. One source said the relevant portion on the Iran document is about 2 minutes long. And another source said the discussion is a small part of a much longer meeting. I'm wondering who recorded this conversation. And, you know, Trump talks, and just to pause on this for a minute, he talks in a very unusual way sometimes. And we saw this with the E. Jean Carroll case when he was at the CNN town hall and he walked us through the story about E. Jean outside of the Bergdorf's, and he walked us through almost in the present sense, like guiding us through it as though it happened yesterday. It was strange and weird. And even in his deposition, he was jumping all over the place. He changes tense, he changes times, he changes, I think, first person, and it's third person. It's strange. So it's hard to actually parse out exactly what he means. He communicates when he wants to in a very, it's kind of a jumbled way that makes sense but that legally, if you write it down on paper, it's hard to interpret. Special counsel Jack Smith, who is leading the Justice Department investigation into Trump, has focused on the meeting as part of his criminal investigation into the handling of national security secrets. Sources described the recording as, quote, an important piece of the evidence. Trump said he has automatically declassified documents. Prosecutors have asked witnesses about the recording. The episode has generated enough interest for investigators to have even gone after and talked to General Mark Milley, one of the highest-ranking Trump-era national security officials, about the incident. Now, we remember General Mark Milley as being a person who was engaging, let's just say, maybe insurrectionary, almost traitorous behavior when Donald Trump was still president. Mark Milley was on the phone with Nancy Pelosi, if you remember, and Mark Milley had to listen to Nancy Pelosi talk about Trump's big fat butt and stuff like that, and said, get him off his big fat butt, and that we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment and stuff like that. And Mark Milley, back during that era, also called China and said, everything's okay. Don't worry after January 6th. So Mark Milley is not necessarily a Trump fan. He's actually a Trump, I would say, opposer. In July 2021, the meeting was held at Trump's golf club. 2 people working on the autobiography, different attendees there. Meadows didn't attend, but Meadows talked about something in his book. And so we'll see if this audio recording comes out. Trump's team responded to this. Politico says that, yeah, they have the tape. It was first reported by CNN, but Trump's people responded. They said that this is nothing more than political persecution. They write, leaks from radical partisans behind this political persecution are designed to inflame tensions and continue the media's harassment of Trump and his supporters. The DOJ's continued interference in the presidential election is shameful, and this meritless investigation should cease wasting the American taxpayers' money on Democrat political objectives. They say the Justice Department is currently investigating Trump's classified documents, and there are many other prosecutions that are moving forward against Donald Trump. And the special counsel's investigation seems like it is now expanding potentially into 2020. The New York Times has this story for us. They say that Trump White House aides were subpoenaed in the firing of the election security expert. And you remember this guy, Christopher Krebs. Very good communicator, somebody who came out and was very useful against any challenges to certain elections. The special counsel is scrutinizing the dismissal of Christopher Krebs, who contradicted Trump's 2020 claims, which is interesting because the special counsel's order says that he's supposed to be investigating the classified documents and January 6th, but this was back into Christopher Krebs, which goes all the way back to the 2020 election, and that as a separate issue almost. Here's what we've got. From the New York Times, they say the special counsel is now investigating efforts to cling to power after the 2020 election. The team is being led by Jack Smith, has been asking witnesses about Krebs. Krebs' assessment was that the election was secure and was at odds with Trump's claim. Smith is also seeking information about how the White House officials approached the DOJ and how Trump tried to turn people to his cause. Investigators are focused on Trump's state of mind. There it is. What was his intentionality? What was he trying to do around the firing of Mr. Krebs? They're looking for indicia, as well as on establishing a timeline of events leading up to the attack on J6. The subpoenas were issued roughly 2 weeks ago. They went to officials in the personnel office, according to people familiar with the matter. Previously, Krebs, they say, enraged Mr. Trump when CISA released a statement 9 days after the election rebuking Trump. They said there's no evidence of any problems. Trump said he terminated him later. So now Jack Smith is going to say Trump was doing this as part of a conspiracy to insurrect. All right? He's firing people, using the power of the presidency to eliminate people who might challenge him, developing a loyalty test. He was also interviewed by Jack Smith's team, but Krebs declined to comment. Smith's team has been trying to figure out how the personnel office interacted with the DOJ. They're saying Trump was scrambling. Fire them, fire them, fire them. He's trying to consolidate power. This is going to be part of a bigger conspiracy charge to seize control of the country. Jack Smith is going to assemble it. They're going to say that Trump is running again, and if he loses, he's going to do it again, which is why he needs to be jailed. It's just like if a murderer murders somebody, which is what they think he did to America, and then he says, I'm going to do it again. The court would obviously not let that person out of jail. They're going to literally equate it to that. And they're going to say he's too much of a clear and present danger to be let out of custody. This is all part of the conspiracy. Now it's going all the way back to 2020. Miss Stirrup and others were banned from entering the DOJ. Bill Barr, long seen as an ally, resigned. Jeff Clark was another senior official who embraced Trump's efforts. So they're creating a conspiracy. It's as clear as day. And they're working one after the other. So it's coming on. And the question is, what is happening with Trump's legal team? Evidently, there are some rumors that there are some disagreements. Here, this came from The Guardian. Trump's legal team has weathered deep distrust for months. They say there's turmoil inside the legal team. This only exploded into public view recently after Tim Parlatore abruptly resigned 2 weeks ago from the representation, citing irreconcilable differences with Trump's senior advisor and in-house counsel Boris Epshteyn. But the department of Parlatore was the culmination of months of simmering tensions. Multiple Trump lawyers are also involved in other criminal investigations. Epshteyn was recently interviewed by the special counsel, and Evan Corcoran also testified to the grand jury. Okay, they're breaking Trump's lawyers too. His lawyers are now being brought in to testify against him. So the clashes are becoming so acute. Some lawyers agreed to a so-called murder-suicide pact if Parlatore got fired. Others saying they'll resign in solidarity. So it's going to continue to heat up, and I think that Trump is capable of weathering the storm, but you can see they are going to be pulling out all of the stops against him, ranging from special counsel to other prosecutions that we'll see in Georgia and New York, and it's only just beginning. Speaking of another prosecution, Alvin Bragg and the Manhattan DA's office now file to take Trump's case, which he wants in federal court, and bring it back down into state court. Remember, Donald Trump in this criminal prosecution is being charged with multiple counts of fictitious business records for evidently paying Michael Cohen for inappropriate services that were not labeled accurately and reported according to New York law. 34 felonies. Trump submitted a request to remove the case from the state level court up to the federal level court, saying that it's justified because it involves federal questions. In Alvin Bragg's prosecution, he's saying that Trump made fictitious business entries because he's trying to skirt around election law. What election? For president. What category is that in? The federal election system. That's a federal issue. So not only is Donald Trump bringing a case where it's alleged that he was violating the law because it was a federal election law, but this also involves a federal question because of the nature of the charges. Donald Trump was running for president. This is a presidential ordeal. And so he should be prosecuted in federal court where he can have some additional privileges and benefits, one of which might be the federal supremacy clause and the focus on federal election integrity or just general national election integrity. And so we're going to take a look very briefly at the Manhattan DA's motion to remand to drop this back into federal court, from federal court into state court. But there are two competing policy issues that are at play here. The federal court Trump wants to be in federal court because he's going to make the argument that a lower level state prosecutor can't jump in and interfere with a federal process. So, for example, Trump is running for president. That is a federal electoral process that involves the various states voting and then assembling all of the electoral votes into account and electing the next president. If we have a system where somebody is running on a federal ticket and they can be attacked by a bunch of state prosecutors, like is what's happening right now, with New York going after Trump, with Georgia, Fani Willis soon to be going after Trump, that is going to harm the federal election. And in this case, Trump is the leading contender for the Republican Party, and he's also been a former president, and very likely has a nice shot at winning again. So if the states can interfere with that, at what point does that become interference with the national election? At what point does that be superseded by federal interests? The state, by contrast, is going to say, hey, this is states' rights. We have an interest in protecting the criminal process. We don't want criminals falsifying and making fictitious business records in our states. And so we want the prosecutions to take place. We want control of the proceedings. So Alvin Bragg wants it back down in the states. Donald Trump wants it up in federal court for different reasons, different advantages in both locations. We've already read through Donald Trump's notice of a removal. He's already communicated this belongs in federal court and it's his right to remove it to federal court. Now Alvin Bragg is saying this must be remanded back down. Send this back to New York. Filed May 30th, 40 pages. People of the state of New York versus Donald Trump. This is New York's memorandum of law in support of the motion to send this back down to the New York courts. We're going to fast forward through the table of contents and the table of the affidavits and authorities, and we're going to see what they say at the start of this memo. They say, perhaps the clearest example of state authority is the punishment of criminal activity. They say our state criminal law has primacy, meaning we have interests. And because none of the requirements for federal removal are satisfied, the court should reject Trump's efforts to remove this prosecution from the state. They give us some background. They say, on April 4th, Trump was arraigned in New York, 34 counts falsifying business records. This is based on a scheme allegedly conducted in 2017 to conceal payments. Trump filed a notice of removal saying he satisfied the rules, and they're asking now for a remand. They say this is only available when a federal officer faces criminal charges and identifies a colorable federal offense, a very narrow interpretation. They're pulling that from the Eastern District of New York. They say Trump's inability to satisfy even any one of these prerequisites requires remand, but here he fails all three. They say most fundamentally, Trump's alleged criminal conduct had no connection to his official duties as president, but arose from unofficial actions prior to the election. They say Trump also has invoked no federal defense because no plausible basis creates or invokes immunity. Says in our federal system, the duty of dealing with a crime is preeminently a matter for the states. And because Trump has failed to identify any grounds for removal, you should return this back to the New York State Court. They tell us more about Trump. 500 separate entities. He deliberately separated the Trump org from his presidential functions. He was the sole beneficiary of a trust. From June 2015 to 2016 of November, Trump was a candidate for the presidency. January 20th, he became president. He was indicted in New York, allegedly for concealing criminal conduct, hide damaging information from the voting public. He falsified business records. The people allege that in 2015 August, Trump met in Trump Tower with CEO of AMI, and he paid them off. There were two people that ultimately got paid, Stormy Daniels and somebody else. $130,000 for this. We've already covered all these details. Another $130,000 to adult film actress. Michael Cohen was involved, moving the money around. And a brief pause on this, but recall that the 34 counts, it sounds like a lot. My gosh, 34 counts of felonies, that's a ton of problems. Well, not really. What happened was Michael Cohen would send Trump an invoice. Trump would say, what's this invoice for? They'd put it in their bookkeeping system as an entry, bill from Michael Cohen. Then they would pay that. So invoice, book entry, payment. Invoice, book entry, payment. 3 felonies every time that happens, every month that happens. So you get your Netflix bill, it goes into your bookkeeping, you pay your Netflix bill every month on recurring. Guess what? 3 felonies. So they assembled all of that. They say defendant then reimbursed Cohen through a series of 11 monthly checks. All of that went out, and therefore the grand jury charged him with 34 counts of felonies. They were not legal expenses. They were falsely input on the ledger, and therefore Trump has to be prosecuted. And so the rest of this is justifying the removal. But let's see what else they are asking for here as they conclude the rest of this document. A lot of legal argument and analysis. As we conclude, they say here, Trump was charged by New York grand jury for crimes for reimbursing his personal lawyer for pre-election expenditures. He doesn't justify the standards for federal removal, and it should be limited. The people's motion for remand should be granted, send it back down to the states. That came in from Matthew Colangelo, writing for the New York County DA's office. They're out of New York. And so Donald Trump and his team will certainly respond to this, and then there will be a ruling from the court, and we'll be, of course, covering this. Would be a nice removal for Trump because I think it would allow him to make new arguments and have a different level of proceeding than what he's currently getting out of New York. And of course, we will continue to cover this prosecution. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing wherever it is you are joining us from today, and we'll look forward to see you on the next one. All right. And my friends, we've got one final segment on the day. And this is picking back up on another story from Kari Lake. In Kari Lake, we spent 3 days doing a trial on this one, and we are very curious as to what happens next. Kari Lake files her notice of appeal. She says she's got new evidence and that this fight continues. She made the announcement with this reporter. We're going to listen to what she had to say. We're also going to see what the notice of appeal has for us. Normally, these documents are just about a page, a paragraph and a half, and this actually has some substance to it, so I do want to read it. And then we'll wrap up with the order from the court that tells us about whether Kari Lake and her legal team gets any sanctions, whether the judge thought this was a legitimate prosecution or a legitimate claim by Kari Lake to be prosecuting, which of course in her claim is the fact that Arizona elections are trash. Now, Kari Lake gives us an update. Here she is speaking with Real America's voice with her announcement.
I mean, at some point you throw your head back and laugh because it's so ridiculous. There's 2 things we have to stop. We got to stop the machines. We have to stop the mail-in ballots. That is the way they are committing fraud. And frankly, we need to go back to Election Day. There's a bunch of other things we can do. I'm going to break a little more news for you, Ben, because you are such a great journalist. And I was going to break it tonight on the stage. But
shh, don't tell anybody. This is just for you guys.
Just for us. Our attorneys just filed a notice for appeal because of what we've discovered with the system log files, which show that they did secretive testing on 3 different dates, and we now have the video to back that up. And that was not available to us because Maricopa County, the people who committed the crime against the people, held that information from us. Now we have the information, and that changes everything. And so we are filing a notice to appeal, and you'll see more filings in the coming days. We are not stopping. I will never back down. That election was stolen from the people, and there will be no way that I back down from that. I just won't, because it's wrong what happened. And I want these people, Stephen Richer, Bill Gates, Jarrett, all of these people who are behind this election to hear the steady drumbeat. I want it to haunt them and wake them up at night.
Oh, Oh, boy. And so guess what? We do know that Bill Gates, who did a terrible job at this election, who suffered PTSD, he's not going to be running again. You're kidding me. Yeah, that was announced on Twitter. And Stephen Richer is going to mourn his loss as they continue to fundraise against America First candidates. So nice announcement from Kari Lake. Let's take a look at the actual notice that was filed. The filing comes from Brian James Blen Law Firm, along with Kurt Olson, the two attorneys we've been following along on this case for some time. Here's what they submit out of the Arizona Superior Court, Maricopa County. This is the same level of the court that we've been in this entire time. They are notifying the court in the case of Kari Lake versus Katie Hobbs that Kari Lake files her notice of appeal. Here's what she says. Plaintiff Kari Lake hereby moves to provide her notice of appeal. And to be clear on this, the notice of appeal is very small and limited. It's going to have some exhibits and some other documents, but the memorandum that will come later should be a much more substantive appeal. It will contain more of the documents based on the investigation of the trial. So a notice of appeal is different than an appellate memorandum. The first is just to let you know, hey, we're coming harder with some other stuff, but that will come later. They say the special action is captioned as Kari Lake versus Katie Hobbs. And it's involving everybody else that we followed. Stephen Richer, Bill Gates, Clint Hickman, Jack Sellers, Thomas Galvin, Steve Gallardo, and the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. We remember Scott Jarrett, the Director of Elections, and the Board of Supervisor defendants. They give us the case number that is being appealed. They say Kari Lake takes this appeal, and which portions of the appeal are they submitting. They say plaintiff appeals, meaning Kari Lake, appeals the final judgment entered on May 30th, denying all of Lake's requested relief and dismissing the case. Incorporated into the judgment from which Kari Lake appeals are the following. We want to appeal specific rulings. The one that came out on May 22nd, denying Kari Lake's request on count 3. She submitted a motion and the judge took it under advisement. And this was with respect to an outcome determinative number of ballots. Appealing that ruling. They're also appealing a May 15th ruling, and we're going to take a look at these. They're attached as exhibits. Denying Kari Lake's 60B motion as to other counts. So counts 2, counts 4, count 6 about new evidence. And we read through that entire filing. Kari Lake said on appeal that new evidence had come to light. When the case came back down on appeal from the Arizona Supreme Court, it went back down to Superior Court. And what they were trying to do is bring back some additional counts. Most of the counts had already been ruled on and been dismissed. They appealed all of them. The Supreme Court said you can go back and start again on count 3, but they tried to reopen count 2, count 5, and count 6. The judge denied that attempt. They're appealing that denial. The basis of that attempt to bring those counts back in was that Maricopa County knew about new evidence. In this case, it was that nearly 2/3 of Maricopa County voters would reject significant numbers of ballots on Election Day due to the ballot on demand printers. They were misconfigured, they were defective, they were unreadable. They're appealing to Division 1, Arizona Court of Appeals. Transfer may be sought to the Arizona Supreme Court, and they want special action review by the upper level courts. They're copying everybody involved in these proceedings, and we see the various exhibits. So there will be more that comes out. There will be an actual appellate memorandum that will have a lot more meat and potatoes to it, which of course we will cover. But there was another order that came out from the judge. This was about sanctions and whether Kari Lake and her team should get them. This was filed out of the Superior Court by the Honorable Peter Thompson here in Arizona. Here's what he says. Pending before this court is Maricopa County and their motion to sanction Kari Lake. Katie Hobbs joined, as did others. Adrian Fontes, they all wanted sanctions. The court has fully considered the memoranda submitted by the lawyers. They say that the defendants here, Maricopa, they seek attorney's fees as sanctions. They want other monetary sanctions against Kari Lake and her lawyers. They say the court has the inherent power to do this. Why? Because Kari Lake intentionally misrepresented facts, they say, by misstating or inappropriately grounding factual assertions on unsupported evidence. They say that Kari Lake knew she lacked factual merit and that she made groundless claims during oral arguments. But the judge says, well, the law says that the court may assess reasonable attorney's fees when they bring a case without substantial justification. But what does that actually mean, without substantial justification? She says the Maricopa contends that Kari Lake unnecessarily expanded these proceedings by intentionally misstating the content of a witness testimony. But this view, says the judge, mistakenly looks beyond trial to the ultimate resolution of the merits and does not allow for the presentation of evidence to prove a disputed claim. These proceedings were Lake's opportunity to prove her claim, to pursue this, and she did. Now, her failure to establish a claim without clear and convincing evidence does not mean automatically that it's groundless. She has the right to bring her claim. She didn't prove her claim, but the fact she didn't prove it doesn't mean she automatically loses attorney's fees because it was brought without justifications. She says no. Even if her argument did not prevail, Lake, through her witnesses, presented facts consistent with and in support of her argument. And so the remainder of Hobbs and the Maricopa County, their allegations appear to rely on the court's inherent authority to award sanctions. The court acknowledges, yeah, I have inherent authority, that I can sanction bad faith attorney conduct. But there's a distinction between this. Opposing litigants in a heated dispute will naturally view the same evidence differently. The inference one draws will be anathema to the other. And they may question each other's good faith and their motivation. But the court does not find the, quote, misstatements in the briefing or the, quote, remarkably bold assertion in oral arguments to stray from advocacy into misconduct. The proceeding in which the statements were made was when you could argue your cases and present evidence. They made their arguments and the court ruled. Therefore, it is ordered denying Maricopa County's motion for sanctions. Sorry, jerks. It is further ordered denying Kari Lake's motion to strike this as moot because it doesn't matter. Following remand and having weighed all of the evidence, the court now enters the following findings of facts as law as to count 3. The court does not find clear and convincing evidence of misconduct. The court does not find clear and convincing evidence of an officer committing misconduct in a canvass. And the court does not find that any misconduct occurred in 2022. And so they rule against Kari Lake in all claims, in favor of Katie Hobbs and the government in other claims. And it's further ordered, no further matters pending. No further matters remain pending. This order is final. So no sanctions for Kari Lake. Doesn't change the ultimate order that we've read through previously, but no sanctions coming out on top of the original order, which is good news for Kari Lake and her team. And the appeal will move forward. And of course, we will continue to cover that. And I hope you join us as we do. Thank you for subscribing and hitting that like button wherever it is you are watching this show. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground on this one. Kari Lake, the notice of appeal. Manhattan DA, they're trying to remove Trump's case from federal court and send it back down to the state level. We've got the special counsel saying he's got audio recordings of Trump with classified documents. Now they're interviewing Christopher Krebs. And we talked all about the FBI corruption and why they should be held in contempt for being contemptuous. And now it is time to hear from you, my friends, from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and say what's up to all the super chats that came in. Thank you, everybody, for being so amazing and generous today. And yeah, our first one came in from Patrick Parker. And Patrick said, I'm wondering if we can do a poll. And we did a poll. And so we got 1,300 votes. And it is 91% of yes. The question was, did the R's get rolled by the Dems on the debt deal? 91% say yes. Did the R's get rolled? The answer to that is yes. And so thank you for that poll. 91% yes, 1.3 thousand votes. They got rolled. It's not even a question, right? Actually, 9% said no, they didn't. 8% said no, they didn't. Good to see you, Patrick. Thank you for that question and the super chat. Hey, John McGarvey invited 5 new members. Welcome to our newest members. Mike V, Megan K, Rob Allen Jr. is in the house. Let's Go got gifted a membership. Tashia's in the house. What's up, Tashia? Welcome to our new membership. Appreciate everybody. And thank you, John, for inviting new members. We also got Patrick Parker is inviting new members. And so this is great news because that means that our morning member only chat tomorrow is going to be a little bit extra attended. Welcome. Thank you to Patrick Parker. Welcome from Patrick Parker. Brought in Amia, Melanie, Diane H, Eric L, and Finn. All got invited members. Welcome, welcome in, my friends. And hey, if you want to get a membership, I think there's a setting in your YouTube chat app. Just click your setting or something and you have to change it into accept gifts. And then you can be invited as well. Thank you, Patrick Parker and John McGarvey, for bringing in new members. Ray K says, for crap's sake, can Trump not get Barnes on retainer for $10 million just for general advice? Yeah, I support that. I think that Trump should hire Robert Barnes for $10 million. It's a great idea. Shout out to Robert Barnes. I hope that happens. It's a great idea. Somebody should tell Trump. $10 million bucks. No payment plans. Send it over to Barnes. We'll get this country back on track, baby. We have another one from Catwoman. Says, thank you, Robert, for bringing the information to the people. We need this every day. Thank you for that, Catwoman. You know, yeah, I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about just how just awful a lot of the mainstream media is. And what's going to happen? I was thinking about this in the context of the Facebook saga, right? Facebook is in this battle with California. They're saying that Facebook should be paying California or paying media companies for posting their stories or something like that. So Facebook just said, well, we just won't post your stories on our platforms anymore. And then other people were saying, well, but the news, where are you going to get the news? And I'm sitting here thinking, hello, over here. Hello, we present the news. We actually show you the documents. Now, we often will pull from other articles and other sources and things like that, but it's an ecosystem that is evolving, right? People can go to other sources, and I think that Facebook and Twitter and these other platforms are in fact more powerful than a lot of these other entities that are the news organizations. It may not be there yet, but I think that ultimately the balance is going to be changing because they're less truthful, many of them. Thank you, Catwoman, for being here. At least we show the documents on the screen. I appreciate you being here. Hey, Adam M. Thank you, Adam. Adam brought in 5 additional membos as well. Tomorrow is going to be lit, my friends. Michael M. is coming in. Kevin B's in the house. Big Don, 25's coming in. Tracy S. in the house. And Black Horse C. Amazing, amazing. All coming in. Thank you, Adam M. Very, very nice of you to invite 5 new membos in the house. Patrick Parker says, yeah, okay. And I'm a saint. Yeah, okay. And I'm a saint. Probably talking about Comey, if I had to guess. Good to see you, Patrick. Thanks for being here, my man. American Dreamer, 5 new membos as well. Woo, woo. Man, it's going to be lit tomorrow. Now, apparently, YouTube only showed 4 of these, which is curious. But American Dreamer, thank you very much, American Dreamer, brought in Another Summer, Amber Perea, Keysden, and Leslie Bianchi. And I'm sure there's another member. who got brought in as well. But thank you very much, American Dreamer. American Dreamer is always in our morning chats as well. And so we love to see that. Tomorrow's chat is going to be lit. It's going to be lit. Patrick Parker says, I think Comey needs to shove his own head in fill in the blank. Oh, I don't know. Probably like a hairdryer kit. You know, the thing that the women sit in and read magazines. I think Comey should shove his head in a hairdryer kit to get his curls. Or a helmet, a bike helmet. That's very good. A bike helmet, yes. Protect his noggin. That's what I think here. And I know that's what you're talking about, Patrick, as well. Put his head in a bike helmet every time he gets on a bike. Because it's dangerous out there, man. Look what happened to Joe Biden today. In fact, a lot of the people in the government should probably walk around with helmets and maybe bubble wrap too. We want them to be nice and healthy and well. Put Joe Biden in bubble wrap, for crying out loud. Another one from Patrick came in. Patrick says something about Bill Gates and Bill Gates' ex-wife and a boyfriend. I think maybe involving Comey and other individuals. Yeah, so that's a good comment from Patrick. We had this one. Sir, when Byron Donalds emoji? Great question on that one. I'm going to have to add that to my to-do list. I'm going to have to write that one down. Byron Donalds emoji. Wasn't there another emoji that was queued up for us? I think it was Tucker or something like that. Yeah, something like that. I'll work on that one. Byron Donalds definitely deserves an emoji. This one came in from Jason on Blast in the house. Says, if they incarcerate President Trump, Democrats will force me to vote for Trump in his prison cell. Bring it. Honestly, it would be such a historic thing. It would be hard not to be a part of that. If they put Donald Trump in prison, it's like, all right, well, I guess we're all working for Trump now. We got to get out there and do something about this. Because it would be nuts. Maybe that's what they want. We'll see. Good to see you there, Jason. Thanks for being here. This one came in from John McGarvey. Says, keep it up, bro. Thanks, John. I appreciate the encouragement. Sometimes I can be a little low energy, and you help me get back up to the higher energy. Thank you, John. Nobody says, man has lost his way. Must change or die. There is no other course. This came in from the world teacher, a.k.a. the Christ, Buddha, Krishna, etc. And says, reference Benjamin Creme, the most profound cover-up ever. And I don't know. Oh, he's a Scottish esoterist. That's interesting. He's got a Wikipedia page. Scottish artist, author, esotericist, editor of Share International magazine. Lived to be 93. Wow. So very cool. Thank you, nobody. Man has lost his way. Must change or die. There is no other course. It definitely feels that way in a lot of different ways. Thank you for sending that in, nobody. This one came in from Nick. How likely is it, in your opinion, that Trump won't be able to run because they successfully detain him indefinitely, if this is possible? Yeah, I think that they might try to detain him or limit him, right? Actually not hold him in physical custody, but say he can't leave certain states. He can't do certain activities. He's got to go to New York to show up for court. He's got to go to Georgia to show up to court. He's got to go to the D.C. circuit to show up to court. He can't leave Florida. He can't leave the country. He's got to be on an ankle monitor or something like that. Or if he says anything, like he's kind of gagged in a way. My point is, I don't think he's going to stop running. They might throw him physically in jail, and I think he would still run. Now, I don't know how that happens practically, and I don't know if he can win from in jail. But it would be a constitutional crisis like we've never seen in this country before, of a whole new variety. But Trump could run, I think, from jail and literally win and then pardon himself and walk right out. But that would be at the federal level. He doesn't have the pardon power for state crimes, which is why they may want those to stick. Yeah, it's going to be a very precarious position. I can't understate it enough. Rocky Water says, if Trump's case is moved to federal court, then we won't be able to watch it live. Sad face. P.S. Fully agree with John McGarvey's tip. And John McGarvey said, keep it up, bro. Thank you, Rocky Water. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, would they? I don't know if they would televise it anyways. I don't know what they're going to do. But you're right. Federal court, it's a lot less accessible. A lot more accessible. Wolfgang Deo is in the house, and good to see you, Wolfgang. It's been a long time. Says, if LGBTQ plus is right, that Leviticus 18 to 22, 23 was oppression, then how do we give reparations to those 4,000 years of people that faithfully followed this oppression not to have gay or animal sex? It's a good question. I don't know. How do you reconcile that? That's right. Yeah, think about all those people who didn't get to partake in those activities, I guess, is what you're saying. And there should be reparations for them. How much should that cost? I don't know what that would be. Well, what did they want in California? I think $200 million per person. And that's only for like what? I don't know, 300 years of slavery, you know? I think they still think that they're enslaved or something. I don't know. They want $200 million for all of the past damages. Don't know. But that's only like 300 years on the high end. So, I mean, at least in America, right? You know, from sort of the modern era. And this is 4,000 years of oppression. So I don't know what it would cost. Probably like a quadrillion dollars per LGBTQ plus a alphabet person. So good to see you, Wolfgang. Glad you're back. Keto in the Kitchen is here with the first super chat in the chat. Keto in the Kitchen with Pat. Sounds like a great channel if you're into keto. And I know many people are. So thanks for sending in the tip there. Keto in the Kitchen with Pat. Love it. Indoctrination says, I like the engine YouTube runs on, but I love the freedom on Rumbles and Locals. From Indoctrination, that's a Locals tip. Yeah, and thank you for that, Indoctrination. Yeah, we try to be everywhere, and we're actually going to expand that. We're going to try to syndicate across other places. So I'm going to try to bring the show back to Twitch. And then there's other streaming platforms that we're working on. We're going to start uploading to a lot of the other sites out there and syndicating all across even more fruited plain of the internet. And that way we can have a little bit more stability and anti-fragility, and we can reach more people and get more work done on this. And I appreciate you being here on Locals. And Locals is a nice place for us. Zulu, hey Zulu, thank you. Brought in 5 new membos. Tomorrow's going to be crazy. Everybody, get your member-only morning stream hat on. Zulu says it brought in Starlet, Tony H, Gloria B, Tex Zombie, and D Brown, all courtesy of our friend Zulu. Thank you very much, Zulu, for inviting 5 new members over to our community. Salty Sarge says, if J. Edgar Hoover could see the way the FBI is running, I'm sure he would be snapping his heels. Hey-o, zinger, right there. Amazing. If J. Edgar Hoover could see the way the FBI is running, I'm sure he would just be not rolling in his grave, but just snapping his heels, you know, because of the cross-dressing, if you get it. Wolfgang says, why are conservatives annoyed with Tuck swimsuits? I thought they liked Tucker. You know, like Tucker Carlson. Oh, gosh. Not that kind of Tucker, Wolfgang. Tucker is a very astute political observer and commentator and patriot. And the Tuckers are a whole different beast right there. Don't even know what the hell that's all about, but apparently they need special bathing suits. Wolfgang says, sandbags are no joke, poor guy. I know the feeling. I know. Biden got sandbagged today. Can you believe that? There was this like random sandbag that just popped out of nowhere. Everybody was walking around the stage. Nobody tripping over it. Joe Biden, of course. can't see, can't really think, has no real cognitive ability whatsoever, got sandbagged. We got Trust to Kids says, thanks, Rob. Thank you, Trust to Kids. Thanks for sending that in. I very much appreciate it. Salty Sarge says, every republic's downfall is caused by its leaders becoming corrupt and the rot it brings. I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? They keep printing themselves raises. They keep supporting their own interests and their friends. They keep inflating our dollars, and it is a bad deal for the rest of us. This one came in from Wolfgang. Says, the reparations are to straight non-zoophilists. I don't know what, I don't even know what that is, but thank you, Wolfgang, for the comment. I don't know what it is. Let's say hello to our friends on Twitter, and then we'll go over to our after party, which is going to be taking place on Locals and on Telegram. So if you're a brand new member who came and joined us, grab the Telegram link in the community tab on YouTube, because that's where we're going right after this for our after party. Now, I want to caution everybody that what I'm about to show you is pretty earth-shattering. We have 5 viewers on Twitter. I know. Things are getting pretty serious on this platform here today. Let's see who else we have here. Danny McWilliams has several questions. Says, Rob, with all the leaks from the FBI and the DA, how can there be a fair trial? There is no one over 5 years old who does not see or hear about the FBI. Yeah, Danny says, you're actually on Twitter. He says, how can Trump get a fair trial? It's a good question. Deplorable Fred says, so a CHS is more important than a compromised, corrupt U.S. president, according to the FBI. Good comment there. Deplorable Fred says, Johnny says hello. Hello, Johnny. He's been working with Mossad for a couple months. Oh, man, so that's why we haven't heard from him. So he's going to come back with new skills, and he's probably going to have uranium or something with him. Not good. This one came in from V. Says that James Comey said, you're not our homie. He says, can we just label the FBI as a terrorist organization and be done with it? Well, they're certainly what feels like to me to be these are some. All right, you got to go back over to the Twitter thread. I don't want to post them here on YouTube. But this is Hunter Biden's snorting redacted lines of crack, if you want to go see that one. B says, can we just label the FBI as a terrorist organization? Well, I think that they cause terror. That is true. They do cause terror out there. And they are not really good at catching a lot of terrorists, like the terrorist pipe bomber that was evidently there on the Capitol. And so, all right, my friends, well, that appears to be it for us on the day. Omnipotent says, yes, there are people on here. Woo! We have some people on Twitter. It's absolute madness over there. But so that means we're going to leave it there. My friends, we'd love to see you for our after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Come check us out. YouTube, if you're a new member, we're going to have you join us on Telegram. Get the private Telegram group and come and join us because the stream is not over quite yet. Also, don't forget to get your Field of Greens or any of their other very nutritious products over there. Stuff to help you sleep, stuff to help you lose a little bit more weight, stuff to help you feel like you're moving, your hair is good, collagen, all sorts of good stuff. Fieldofgreens.com. The one I like is the Real Organic Superfood. It's your Field of Greens. It's got antioxidant blends, all sorts of very good stuff in there. And you can save 15% off with code Robert when you check out. Also, don't forget, if you'd like to get a mind map and use this tool like I do, it's a very fun tool. I use it for all sorts of other things that you don't ever see here. But spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap is where you can sign up for your free account. We also want to thank the mods who mod down the fort for us and keep things nice and orderly and are very, very helpful with rounding up all of the chat. Very grateful for our amazing mods. We have the best mods. Shout out to Vienticus Prime, our friend K Bean. We got Just Cause in the house, playing hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu's here along with Beyond Geostars, our friend Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me over on Rumble, modding down the fort for us. Shout out to our friend Sleepy Dog Lee, Geegum Geegum, and our friend Nathan N810 also over on Locals, modding down and meme smithing this place up. And Salty Sarge says, great show as always. Parting question. Do you think you'll get a buzz if you lick one of the Hunter Biden paintings? Parting question. Do you think you'd get a buzz if you licked one of those? Or would you die of multiple STDs, like in a matter of days? Probably one of the two. Don't try it. Not going to be a good situation. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going to leave it here. We would love to see you at our after party. Wolfgang Deo says economic terror has occurred. For our final super chat, we are going to our after party. We would love to see you there. Don't forget, wherever you're watching this, to hit the notification bell. We might do a little bit of an earlier show tomorrow. I haven't quite decided yet. So hit that notification bell because it is a Friday. Sometimes the news is kind of slow, so we hit the early show. So come check us out. Hit the notification bell. I'll let you know in the morning. Otherwise, my friends, that is it for us on the day. We are going to leave it right there. We're going over to our after party. Come and join us. If not, we'll be back here tomorrow. And I hope to see you here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very, very well, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Make it a great night. Bye-bye.